Giving us a day for Juneteenth, they acknowledge you guys were our slaves. And not only that, you guys find out 2 years later. So we gonna celebrate that y'all found out 2 years later. That's a spit in the face. To celebrate the end of slavery, and that wasn't the end the day we found out. We found out 2 years later. So we celebrating the fact that we found out 2 years later than everybody. So now this is what happens. Capitalism trumps citizenship. What do you mean by that, Charleston? Now you got Juneteenth shirts in Walmart, Target. They benefit off this now. We don't. You're not going to see a bunch of black people being able to sell out of these Juneteenth stores and Juneteenth posters like they do for the 4th of July. So now the capitalist wins off this, not black people. We was already celebrating the holiday. We was already celebrating it, so we lose. I would much rather Joe Biden had sat down and listened to Ice Cube than made this a holiday. I would much rather Joe Biden had sat down and listened to what Ice Cube had to say with that plan that he had than giving us a national federal holiday. You know what we needed before this national federal holiday? A new crime bill. We need a new crime bill. We don't need no motherfucking holiday. I'll never celebrate the day again. I'll never celebrate it again because it meant much more.
Juneteenth. It's a word that's been around for over 150 years, but only recently has it started to hit the mainstream. It's about damn time. Juneteenth marks the day when the last enslaved African Americans in Texas finally got the news they were free. Think about that for a second. 2.5 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, folks were still living under the brutal thumb of slavery. 2.5 years. That's how long it took for the news to reach Galveston, Texas, on June 19, 1865. Now we celebrate Juneteenth as a testament to resilience, to the unbreakable spirit of black people. But it's also a stark reminder that freedom delayed is freedom denied. It's a reminder that the fight for equality doesn't end with a signature on a piece of paper. Why Texas? Why did it take so long for the news of freedom to reach those enslaved there? Well, Texas was a holdout during the Civil War. They clung tight to the institution of slavery even as the Confederacy crumbled around them. Some slave owners, they heard the whispers of emancipation and hightailed it to Texas, dragging human beings along with them. They figured they could outrun the long arm of justice, keep their property and their way of life. But the truth has a way of catching up, doesn't it? On June 19, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston and read General Order Number 3. That order, it declared the freedom of all enslaved people in Texas. Imagine the wave of emotions that washed over those who heard those words. Relief, disbelief, joy so profound it probably felt like pain. Juneteenth reminds us that freedom ain't free. It's something we have to constantly fight for, generation after generation. And today that fight looks a little different. We've traded whips and chains for algorithms and data mining. We live in a world where tech giants are the new plantation owners. They're getting rich off the backs of black and brown people, exploiting our labor and our data. From the sweatshops where our phones are assembled to the algorithms that perpetuate bias, the digital world is rife with new forms of slavery. These companies, they're making billions, while the people who are actually creating the value, they're struggling to make ends meet. It's a new form of sharecropping where we're constantly working but never quite owning the fruits of our labor. Section 4, the capitalism conundrum, profit over people. This brings us to the big C, capitalism. Now I know capitalism is held up as this engine of progress, this great equalizer. But let's be real, for black people, capitalism has often felt more like a rigged game. From redlining to the racial wealth gap, the system is designed to keep black folks down. We're disproportionately incarcerated, disproportionately unemployed, and disproportionately living in poverty. And yet we're told to be grateful for the scraps we're given, to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, as if the system wasn't built to keep our boots firmly planted in the mud. Section 5, a hollow celebration, freedom without equity. So when we celebrate Juneteenth, we have to ask ourselves, have we truly achieved freedom if we're still fighting for basic, economic justice? Can we truly commemorate emancipation when so many are still trapped in systems of oppression? The answer, my friends, is a resounding no. Freedom without equity is just a word, a hollow promise. It's like having a key to a house you can't afford, a car you can't drive. Juneteenth should be a celebration, yes, but it should also be a call to action, a reminder that the fight for liberation is far from over. Section 6, breaking the chains, a call to action. So, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to sit here and tweet about it, or are we going to actually do something? We need to support black-owned businesses. We need to demand policy changes that address systemic racism. We need to hold corporations accountable for their exploitative practices. But most importantly, we need to keep talking about it, keep the conversation going. Educate yourselves and others about the true history of Juneteenth and the ongoing fight for black liberation. Because real freedom, the kind of freedom those enslaved people in Galveston dreamed of, it doesn't come from hashtags or parades. It comes from dismantling the systems of oppression that hold us back. It comes from demanding justice, equality, and a seat at the table. It comes from understanding that none of us are free until all of us are free. And if you agree with me, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with everyone you know. Let's make some noise, people.